Merve, it is so good to see you again. Thanks for meeting me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure to be here. Real excited.
Thank you. So, all right, tell me from a grand perspective. I'm like, what are the messages that our kids are getting? What are we being bombarded with all the time? Can you tell everyone, like, where is it that our messaging and our social media is going, this content?
Sure. So I think there's a couple of things that we have to just take into account. One is how much access our kids are having to social media or platforms like that. So that can be household to household, that can be community to community. So I think that's one thing. The second being that there are kind of like some predestined algorithms for identifying as a certain age range as a male or age range as a female. And regardless of your interest and how you might try to set your algorithm as a young male, I'm going to get things around masculinity, around the way that I look, around like, my physical physique strength, things like that. And then with women, beauty standards, right? So those things are naturally going to just be built into that experience. You're almost predestined to get that. And then as you start to dive into certain ideas, or even just, I think what's important to recognize is the algorithms aren't just things that you're interested in, they're things that gather your attention. And so even if you don't feel comfortable with what you're seeing, it got your attention. And that just feeds what might scroll up next, potentially. And so you have to be very active in how you're designing kind of your experience and even resetting if need be.
Well, when you say algorithm, I think I have some amalgamation of this, like so many different things. I mean, what is your understanding of the algorithm and what we are getting fed?
Yeah, so there's this idea that there's kind of like a dial that's in the back and it's like, ramp up the algorithm, ramp it back. Essentially, it's just a series of code that's meant to identify areas of engagement. And depending on what you're providing access to, that tool, that app on your phone or on that device, it could be biometric engagement. It can be the way your eyes scan. It could be the time that you spend.
The apps can actually track that.
There are some that have it in the fine print. When it comes to apps or tools that might be designed for schools, those are widely inappropriate and they're not built in. But there are other tools that get access to all the ways that they open up to some of your camera access, to your first or last 2 clicks from your apps to your websites. And that gives a lot of insight to who you are.
And even how long we're on a post?
So have you ever had a point where you were maybe talking about a product or you saw a product and you just were talking about it maybe a little bit with someone close to you, and then you pop up any app or website and all of a sudden it is in
my feed.
It is in your feed or it is in your suggested marketing. I mean, how do you think that got there? It got there because it picked up something auditorily. It picked up something either that you scanned or something that you paused on. And that helps to feed it even further because they're all based on monetizing your attention, monetizing your engagement, right? It's all ad-based.
I hate that. I in a way, I wish it would go back to just a chronological feed of what my friends would do. I wish it wasn't based on something I said in passing to someone 2 days ago, and then things are popping up.
So there are some things that you can actually do that are on your own personal feed. I'm a big proponent for when I think about the impact of the types of messages kids are getting. Part of that is also not just what they're getting in their own feeds, but what you're role modeling and what they see in their parents' feed. Because they're watching whenever we're scrolling too. You could actually identify in your feed just the people you follow or just particular topics. And you can actually go in like on Instagram and actually identify just those that I follow and not having anything else recommended pop up. It's a way of kind of like narrowing down what you're going to get. But you just got to recognize that sometimes the folks that you follow post very different types of content, right? Because they're also getting paid to provide content.
I found a grown-up dad because I felt unprepared and I wanted to be a different kind of father than I had growing up. Today, Grown Up Dad is a nationally broadcast TV show across PBS, and we're working directly with dads and experts around the world to share important stories and advice so we all find the joy and strength of being a father. Now, Grown Up Dad is a nonprofit. We operate from the generosity of viewers like you. So please hit that subscribe button and join our small Dad Collab groups. Go to that website, grab some merch, and together, let's make fatherhood better for everyone.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And what I find interesting too is Common Sense Media, like how I came across your organization. It was originally It was ratings on TV shows. It was ratings on movies. And there's so much more of a focus, it seems now, too, on social media, on content, and even media literacy. You know, can you talk to me about why has this been being so important for Common Sense to move in this direction?
Sure. So media is media and technology in general is just this ubiquitous thing in our lives. It's the way that we live personally. It's the way that we eat and order food, the way that we hail a car to take us where we need to go. But in the classroom, it's the way that we teach and learn now in more ways than ever. So it is incumbent on us to ensure that if we're going to be using these tools, and we're going to recognize when it's a utility versus when is it a connector, and then when is it a detractor. So if we're going to be using technology and we expect to have transferable skills in everything that we do or that we hope our kids are doing, then they need to be addressed, not just at home, it needs to be addressed in the classroom. It needs to be addressed in the way that we do research. It needs to be in the way that we communicate and even foster connective conversations through these apps or tools. Yeah. So let's reinforce and role model what that looks like.
And so you offer tools for educators as well as for parents.
Correct. So in the classroom, I think what's really important is we can't just talk about things the way that we might as a parent, right? We need to build it into our pedagogical framework. This needs to be not just a topic, but really a real learning experience that then could be applied, right? And so it's all research-based. What we wanted to do is not just teach how to do something like lateral research and here's a particular topic or a news piece. Right. So how do you dive deeper to find out more about the author? Is this piece, what site is it represented from? What's their slant typically? How do you find value in diving deeper? Because it allows you to kind of make a more thoughtful kind of perspective around whatever you're looking to do, right? And then how do you then apply those skills into kind of your
and that's a good transition. So what do you think, how would you define media literacy?
So I think media literacy for us as an organization, one of the things, it's both the traditional sense of understanding how media works, how to really break down the different components of it, and then how to really leverage it so that you can get what you expect from it, right? Recognizing that there are some imbalances potentially in how media can present itself now.
Imbalances like misinformation or
misinformation, exactly. Those are the things. The other part that we really look at also is recognizing that these are resources, these are tools, these are experiences that are kind of core to the experience of growing up now. And that has real implications on our emotional health. It has implications on our cultural context. And how do we make sure that we're taking account for that while still building the skills that a student might need to navigate everything that's available to them?
With these imbalances, with misinformation, with manipulation, what does common sense recommend to understand what we're seeing and how to evaluate it?
Yeah, I think what we try to encourage kids and educators to do is try to dive deeper into trying to understand why a piece of content was created. What is the intention behind the content? I think oftentimes there's the fallback of, we just wanted to see if we could do it, or we were just being funny, right? And then there's the real hurt. There's the real, let's lead them astray. There's the real, let's politically charge something that doesn't need to be. Yeah. And understanding where that intention comes from is going to be incredibly important for us, especially for our young kids, to empower their own agency as they grow up. And that's probably the heart of the work. How do we develop strong agency so that they can feel more thoughtful in the way that they're making decisions moving forward?
Common Sense Media has put a lot of time and research into studying to what our kids are consuming. What are some of the latest things that you have all found out?
Yeah. So one of the things that we typically do these longitudinal studies that really look at how much media and technology kids are consuming from 0 to 8 and then from 8 to 18. Most recently, we looked at our 0 to 8 study, and the last time we did that was kind of during lockdown, where the numbers we knew were going to explode. Yeah. But what's interesting is the numbers haven't changed. We imagined, we were hoping please don't increase, please decrease, because now we've figured things out. And the numbers haven't changed, actually. They're still spending a lot of time, but the time they're spending has shifted. Really? They're spending a lot more of that time on video games and on YouTube or short form video. So it's not just like media, because watching movies and shows. It's quick, fast, punchy, something that keeps them engaged and moving through, right? Or it's just connected on game-based platforms. So the way they socialize and connect, their friends are on these spaces, so they're connecting through a medium of, game experience or interactive experience, not necessarily running outside and spending that time like we hope our young kids would do.
What's one thing you wish every parent knew about media literacy and what they should be looking for in their kids and their families?
So I think what I hope every parent considers is making this a part of day-to-day conversation, not just bringing it up when they feel like they're afraid their kid might have gotten into something. But making it a consistent conversation, that way when something does hit the fan and you do need to kind of get into a mode of like, let's talk, they come to them first. I think the reality is it's so easy to feel like we can find a thought leader or someone that I trust online because I connect with them.
Yeah.
But how much of it is truth? How much of it is real? How much of it takes into the account that context as a family that you hope is built into that experience with your child? So day-to-day conversations, it doesn't have to be what I want them to think or how they should think, but that they think and that they talk about it every day. And that's going to be a huge unlock.
Merve, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.